Hello everyone, my name is Bronte. I'm a legal assistant here in Karen's office. We're happy to provide you with this video recording of a presentation the CEO of Directive Communication Systems gave to a few of our clients in our office. Directive Communication Systems, or DCS, is an estate management company that helps attorneys and personal representatives organize and contact your digital accounts after you've passed away. Our office will be providing the services of DCS to our care plan clients as an enhancement to your estate plan. Here to explain the details himself is the CEO of the company, Mr. Lee Poskanzer.
Asset is? No. Can somebody throw out what they think a digital asset might be?
Anything on your computer?
Things on computers.
Username, password.
Username, password. Anything else?
That rumor I put on Facebook last week.
That's a digital benefit. And by the way, I saw that and I thought I agreed with it.
Okay.
A digital asset can be anything that comes in an electronic form. So when you have a communication with a friend, let's say via text or via instant message, that relationship is a digital communication and can be considered a digital asset. The account to which you have is a digital asset. Your files on your computer are digital assets. The pictures on your phone are digital assets. So the definition is quite broad. And why that's important is because we have, over the last 20 plus years, all of us have built up portfolios of different digital assets and digital footprints. And while it hasn't been really critical with trust and estates the last few years, it's becoming more so. And what practitioners have been able to do, up until about now, has been able to do things like password sharing, which seems like a really common sense approach. I just give my passwords and somebody will be able to access my information. But now it's starting to get so big, and there's a lot more oversight to privacy. I don't know if anybody knows, maybe in the news you might have read lately, Facebook has been in a little bit of trouble with Congress, same with Google. A lot more control about privacy and what information gets out. And so the Uniform Law Commission, along with the website owners and the ACLU, got together and came out with a recent law called the Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. $10 to somebody who can say that in under 5 seconds. Almost like that McDonald's commercial 20 years ago, 2 old beef patty, special sauce, those cheese curds, onions on a sesame seed bun.
There you go.
Yeah. I got my free Big Mac 10 times. But there's new laws, and there's old laws that Karen and Tony, right, I got it, yeah, good. I didn't know if I had a short-term memory problem that we need to be aware of at this point. That we have to adhere to and comply to, that we're never really being faced before by trust and estates work. So 10 years ago, life was much simpler for trust and estates administration. Why? Because we really only had a handful of accounts, and statements were being sent to post office boxes or your mailbox. There was a physical paper trail, and everybody knew what was going on. Fast forward, technology has made our lives easier, but in some ways it's made it much harder, because we have a lot more ability to hide ourselves. We have a lot more identities, and we have a lot more accounts. How many accounts do you think the average person has right now?
Well, this says over 130.
Yeah.
That's a year old. It's over 150.
Wow.
Okay, by year 2020, Dashlane, a password management company, has projected the average person will have 200 accounts. So we're signing up for new accounts on an ongoing basis. We're becoming more familiar. We're becoming more comfortable with doing online activities. And we even know we're downloading apps to our phone, which is a whole new type of account. Before it was just typing in a website and you would log in and enroll. Now we have to worry about apps being downloaded. So there's a lot more going on. What are we doing online? So who does banking online? Who does investing online? Who keeps in touch with family members via Facebook or FaceTime? Okay, anybody dating online? Okay, I did. Until I met my wife. Now she's made sure I come off. How about anybody doing anything with crypto?
No.
Okay. But does everybody know what crypto or hear about crypto? Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. How about DNA research? They did Ancestry.com or 23andMe. Some people in the back, just so the rebels in the back. I see the straws with the spitballs coming too, by the way. But we're doing more. Has anybody heard of Venmo? Venmo, it's a digital wallet on your phone. Younger generations, that's how they actually pass money back and forth.
It's creepy.
So they'll sit in the room and they'll make bets and you'll see them sending money back and forth.
My daughter pays her rent on Venmo.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a friend who's a dog trainer. She collects all her payments from clients on Venmo.
What is it, a bank?
I think almost PayPal. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
It's a lot like PayPal.
But still, who uses a bank? Who
Venmo
uses your
become-
bank?
Well, yeah, or you set up your own bank with them, so they become a digital wallet. So they'll hold balances. So that doesn't go into your Citibank account or your B of A account. It stays in your Venmo wallet. So we're doing more and more online, and we're doing more and more creative things online. So it's not just like, okay, I'm talking on the phone and now I do it online. We're really kind of dependent now for our daily lives online. Is there anybody that doesn't go on the net or uses an app at least once a day? Anybody?
No one's raising their hand.
Yeah. So we can see how the digital aspect of our lives has now creeped into how we actually conduct our lives. We do shopping, etc. 2014, there was research by McAfee Software. How much do you think the average person had in digital assets online was back then?
Talking dollars, right?
Dollars. A guess.
Well, are you talking bank accounts and all that other
All
stuff?
of it.
Well,
Digital online.
50 grand, I don't know.
You're not far, 55. It's probably closer to about $100,000 now online. Why this is important and why I'm bringing all of this up is because there are two things that now occur that impact your trust in estates or your plans. One is, in many cases, the people that we know, that we love, our heirs, they don't know everything that we do.
I don't know everything I do.
Well, that's there might be other reasons for that.
That's reassuring.
She does.
Is there a physician in the house?
I mean, think about it. How many times do you put in your username and password and you don't even think about it? Or your computer's already doing it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many accounts do you forget that even had a password because it's coming out automatically?
Exactly. And now you expect your heirs to know. And if you do strict online banking, strict online investing, and you have information being sent to email addresses that nobody knows about, now all of a sudden accounts get lost. So that's the first problem that digital assets and technology bring us. Second is, digital assets are not like tangible assets. Your heirs don't automatically get access to information.
That's true.
Right? I have a car, I have a title, I have a house, I have a deed, I have a domain name, I have nothing. So not only do I have to be able to show some type of relationship with the online account, I don't necessarily get or be able to grant access to information into email or Dropbox so somebody can find bank statements, investment portfolios, pictures, intellectual property, love poems that you may have, those romantic, nostalgic things that help our legacies. We even have one person in our system who is a World War II vet, and he owns domain names. And those domain names, 12 of them, are all historical in nature. He's got video footage from his aircraft. He's got pictures and all of that, and kids use that as historical, as a reference for historical purposes. If he were to die and not make plans for those domain names would expire they'd be put back into GoDaddy. Everybody knows GoDaddy?
Mhm.
And now somebody for $15 buys it up, and all that history's lost. Imagine Dropbox got pictures of family from 1800s. Or, in our case, and actually just thinking about this right now, never thought about it until literally the second, we have a very expansive ancestry family tree that goes back to 1600s. I hadn't even thought about it. And the person who's the administrator, they're the sole administrator. So I gotta make sure I talk to cousin Lisa. You think I'm kidding? What are we doing online in 1 minute's time? We're sending almost, and again, this would be a great visual, 200 million emails. Everybody has email, yes? So we're sending a lot of emails. We're shopping. We're spending almost $1 million every minute shopping. We are, there is almost 18 million text messages sent in 1 minute. These are all about our personality. These all have information about us. These all have ways to identify us. So as I started to talk, digital assets and tangible assets have very different personalities. We talked about the title of the deed. There's no way to also get anything back if it's lost. It can be lost because the subscription expires. It can be lost because nobody has access. It can be lost because somebody accidentally deleted it. And in the case of Google, if you don't plan properly, and somebody needs to get access to your email, but another family gets to Google before anything else and deletes the account, Google says, we received instructions to delete the account. We can't access anything because there's no way to show that this is what the account holder wanted to do unless you make a very clear declaration. I want my Gmail information to be disclosed to Bob. So there are many, many ways to look at the delicate nature of digital assets and how they're different than tangible assets. They're also very hidden. You were talking about computers and files on computers. How many, if you have a file, how many different folders deep does it go sometimes?
7 or 8.
Right? 7 or 8 folders deep. And how many files do you think you have on your computer? Right? So now all of a sudden your fiduciary is burdened with the proof, burdened with the job of trying to find what's 1,000 files wide, 7 layers deep. In my case, I have bank accounts that go through my personal file, then to my bank, then into the name of the bank, and then into the type of account. And I give acronyms and cryptic messages as to what they are, because I don't want, if a hacker ever gets to my personal computer, I don't want them to know that it's Citibank account, checking, blah, blah, blah. I want to bury it. But that same protection is now going to affect the people I want to be able to find it. So how do we do that? Lastly, have every one of us, I know the answer, but I'm going to say it anyways, signed a terms of service agreement with their online account? They agreed to it?
Have you read it?
No.
Exactly. I was going to say, have you read that? The average person takes 40 minutes to read those terms of service agreements. There's now research. If the average person has 150 accounts, each one takes 40 minutes to read those terms of service agreements, you'd lose your hair like I do. So what ends up happening is we agree to them. And just to let you know how it can be serious information, there was a study done by 2 universities where they created a fake social media site. And in the terms of service, if you agree to it, you agree to give up your firstborn child to the social media site.
That's okay.
Yeah. My mother would have been like, Alan? Yeah, let him go. Less than 1% of the participants in the survey read that. So a vast majority of us miss out very important information. And in terms of the trust and estates world and our legacies, there is very clear information about what can be shared, how it can be shared, and what to do.
I think if anybody did read those, then they wouldn't sign up for them.
Right,
Probably.
in many cases.
Yeah.
Yes, and they live in a remote island.
Yeah.
you know, because we want what they have.
Well, you kind of, what other choice do you
You don't.
have?
Right, and that was my next point. You have no choice to negotiate.
Yeah.
When you get that update from Apple on
They don't want
iTunes,
me doing their editing.
no, I've never sent a red line to a website owner about my account. So I don't have any position to negotiate, but I want my Gmail, I want my Facebook. So now I'm stuck. So now I have to abide by those terms of service agreements, and those contracts, and they are contracts, are still, they survive even after our death. Because a lot of that contract is about our privacy. And now all of a sudden, unlike a car, unlike a house, we have privacy matters related to our accounts. And that's where that's going to be the basis for the rest of the discussion, is everything's about our privacy. We also, unknowingly, have laws that protect our privacy, which we want while we're alive, so that nobody can get in, and if somebody does get in, there are severe penalties for hacking and taking our information, that go back to 1986. So there are several laws on the books that also prevent lawyers and your fiduciaries from breaking into accounts. And I use that term, breaking into, meaning using password sharing, which is impersonating an account holder, or hacking, or any other unauthorized use. And the term authorized use means also the website owner has to authorize it. It's not just us, the account holder. We're actually leasing that account from the website. So we were talking about the terms of service. So the terms of service, we talked about how we just agree to them and we don't read about it, but they're designed to protect the website owner. They're not really always about us.
They're never about us.
They're never.
So the reason why those terms of service and those privacy policies are put in place goes back also to those laws in the 80s and the 90s that hold website owners accountable for a privacy breach. So if Google or Facebook releases information, they're going to be sued for $3 to $5, $10 million. And if you can imagine, if 10 accounts get breached and, on personal information, the liability grows very quickly. And for Facebook, we'll probably see a lot of information happening. A lot of lawsuits coming up soon.
What about Marriott?
And Marriott, too.
500 million accounts.
Yes, a lot of problems
Boom.
there.
And that's a digital asset. Your Starwood points with Marriott are a digital asset.
Yeah.
Your airline miles.
That's what I said, I
are a
hope they
digital
didn't get
asset.
all my reward points.
In fact,
Really.
there was a guy up in Canada who had $900 worth of what they call shoppers points up there. Somebody hacked into his account and got it down to like 20, so he has no idea what happened to the other 880. But somebody hacked in and grabbed all his loyalty. Now, the company has to reimburse that, and they have to take the handle, but you can see how delicate information is.
I was waiting for you to say, and he sued under privacy laws and got $880,000.
Could be. It's Canada. They're nice. And I just relocated up to Toronto, so I'm becoming nicer. I actually
Just don't go to Quebec, yeah.
No. I'm in Toronto. My wife is like, we don't cross into Quebec. So we now have new rules that Karen and Tony have to play by. There's no wiggle room in these rules. Unlike tax information where we can do tax planning, we can plan ahead with tax deferral, tax avoidance. These rules give no freedoms. They're about your privacy. Federally, there's the Electronic Communications Privacy Act and the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Statewide, there's even more. There's a new law called the Ayurveda, which we talked about, that creates a path so that at some point, if all the requirements, all the information, and all the methods to submit information are completed appropriately, the site owner is compelled to disclose an account contents. Now, let me make a very big distinction between disclosure of an account's contents and access to your account, because they're two very different things. A lot of people say, it's okay, you know, somebody can go in to my Facebook and get the information. Well, that's actually impersonating an account holder. And if somebody does that, they could literally walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars or reputational disparagement. So the site owners have agreed that they will data dump all the information onto a disk, sometimes as small as this, and send it to somebody. And then somebody's got to go through all that information. So the new law doesn't actually grant anybody access to your account itself. It gets the ability for the data dump of information so that your fiduciaries, your friends, your family can go through things.
Is that a thumb drive?
That's a thumb drive, or travel drive, a jump drive. It comes in many different names. I always get confused. So recent research shows that not only do we want our privacy while we're alive, but we also, when you start to think about what you want to have happen to your accounts, 4 out of 5 people want privacy in the afterlife. They want to be able to say, I want my brother Bob to get access to my LeePoscanzer at Gmail account, but I want cousin Lisa to get access to LeePoscanzer Lipo118 at AOL.com. Because I want only certain people to see certain things. And we have to be very clear about also the responsibility that comes with going through that information. Somebody's got to go through emails and then pictures and then online storage. It can be a very overwhelming and big process. And that also can be very costly if your fiduciary or a lawyer is charging for that.
Could you give it a, say, in my case, my son was, one of my boys is the executor. Could I just have him take a thumb drive and go into my computer and then he just take everything?
But when, Tom? I mean, you don't know when you're gonna die, so your computer's constantly evolving.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, he could do that periodically. And
He could only have access to the files that are on the computer.
well,
Not the online programs.
He could not go online.
okay.
Cannot go on it. You cannot use any apps. Cannot sign in under your name. So you could do it and grant him access to the hardware. But after that, there's limitations and there's real liabilities that come with that. And I will go through what site owners are doing to prevent false access. This is the new law that I was just mentioning, the Ayurveda or Ayurveda. This is now, and you don't have to know anything, this is the process that a lawyer has to go through just to get access to one account. It involves court orders. And if you live outside the United States, this is just to share this with you. If I'm French and I have a Gmail account,
No EU, right?
oh yeah, it's going to get worse too. I not only have to comply to the U.S. law because Google is based in California, I then have to get a French court order to say that I've complied to the California law, and then go to Santa Clara County and get a California court order there. So in some ways, it's a very good thing that we're living in the U.S. I'm going to say this over and over again. Do not, oh yes.
Can you have a directive that allows you to delete upon death?
Allows your executor.
To delete on death?
Yes, and we'll walk through
Okay, I'm sorry.
exactly the different options
Okay.
and the types of directives that you have. So yes. Do not share your passwords. Do not share your passwords. I will say it over and over again. And there's always somebody, and we'll figure out which one of you, that will say, what do you do about password changes? We actually don't take passwords. You're going to see that in a moment.
Thank you very much.
But don't share your passwords. Why? It's a violation of law. That privacy law of '86, not only is it a violation of law, it carries a penalty of $10,000 per use. Now you say, well, you know, my son, is Facebook really going to come after us? Is Google really going to do that? Well, let me put it this way. If you change the password and your son, daughter, friend doesn't know, to Google, they're a hacker. And if your lawyer recommended it, that's
Who
an
did
incredible...
not, I never recommended
Right.
sharing password.
Tony, if Tony recommended it,
All his fault.
Not here.
encouraging breach of agreement comes with penalties. And we have heard now from website owners saying, we are going to go after family members, we are going to go after lawyers, we are going to go after financial advisors, because it costs us money every time we have to research a potential hacker. There's a lot of money spent because they're there to protect your privacy. Not only that, it's completely unsafe, it's extremely unsecure. If you share your passwords and they're ever compromised, you're on the hook because you've shared the password. Your privacy protection no longer works. And if there's vital information or somebody in your community decides to sue the website owner, they're going to turn around and go back to you because you shared the password.
Well, and it's not gonna work much longer.
No, and that was my next one. I love this. I feel like someone pays attention to me when my wife doesn't. But we're also getting into the age of biometrics. Passwords are becoming obsolete. Karen is absolutely right. We are going to a new way of securing our accounts. So retinal scans, fingerprints. In fact, there's a situation where the police went into a funeral home, opened up the casket to get the fingerprint so they could get to the iPhone. Now, there's a whole lot of lawsuits happening around that because invasion of privacy, the family was there, emotional distress.
Well, and even using the password isn't gonna work much longer,
Right.
because now they're doing artificial intelligence analysis of how you work on your computer. So I'll use an example. Bronte, when she enters numerals, she uses the 10 key. I don't, right? I use the things up on top of the keyboard. They're taking notice of that. And so if I use my keyboard in a different way, if I use my mouse in a different way than the user, it won't matter that I know the password.
They know everything. They have IP address lookup. So if I use a computer on my right and then I try to log in with one on my left, they know.
Google
So
does
what
that
I-
already.
Yeah, a lot of them, they know this is a different,
Device.
Exactly. So
Device
what-
validated.
Exactly. So what happens? The two-factor authentication questions come up. That you text on your phone, so you can see all the measures they're spending a lot of money on to prevent people from going into the accounts.
A lot of the phones now, you have to use your thumbprint in order to get them so you can work.
Exactly. Or even Citibank. Does anybody have a Citibank charge card? So I do. And about a month ago, no, 2 months ago now, it might even be longer, they asked me to record my voice. So now when I
Fidelity
call-
does that.
Yep.
Yeah, Vanguard does that. I have a client's account that works that way.
Try getting my voice when I'm dead.
yeah.
Right? Again, I go back to my wife. My wife was
Yeah,
not here.
exactly.
I'm gonna haunt her.
We'll get that word out of them.
So the key is you want to make sure you treat your passwords like a toothbrush. Don't share them even with friends. And save them for yourself. I want to talk to you. I've given you a lot of ideas on what's happening in the industry. I want to give you some factual situations because a lot of people say, well, that doesn't apply to me. This doesn't apply to me. You know, I don't even have that. But when we start to talk about the actual stories that are taking place. So, is anybody a gamer, online gamer? Play any games online?
Facebook games even.
So, we're investing more on games. And senior citizens are actually one of the biggest increasing, one of the larger increasing populations going on games. The highest amount paid for a virtual artifact in a game is $6 million. People are paying $50,000 investing on a virtual sword, a virtual cloak, gives them powers.
Oh, yeah.
Even in crypto, there's something called a crypto kitty, which is like the Cabbage Patch dolls of the 20 teens, where it's $100,000 for literally nothing. So we have a lot of money tied up in hidden assets that we would never know unless we disclose, I have money here. Domain names. So we as our company, and I'll share what we do in a moment, we have a client, she's got a domain name she bought in the 90s. Now, she doesn't do anything with it, it's just her initials, but it's 3 characters.
Wow.
Very few of them.
Very few. I think 999 to be exact. No, actually a lot more than that. That was numerous.
Yeah.
You can see my education really went far. She's been offered $1 million for that domain name.
I sold one for $900.
Yep. You know, and if you don't make sure it's part of your trust, it could expire, and then your heirs are out that money.
Well, and it's not so easy to make it part of your trust. I mean,
Right.
when you got on and you logged on, registered with your GoDaddy or whatever, you didn't get to list your trust as an owner. It wasn't an option. So GoDaddy doesn't know you have a trust.
Yep. And
I can
And
doesn't
plus you have to
necessarily
renew
know
them
you
every
have a
3
trust.
years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got to keep a current credit card on account
Exactly.
to renew it. So,
things can fall through the cracks
Yeah.
very easily. We actually had, now I'm going to give Karen a lot of praise here, and this is why she selected our service. We have a lawyer who's an environmental lawyer in DC, and unfortunately she lost her husband, I'm going to say it must be 7 months ago now. And after he passed away, she went to the lawyer and started to do her stuff. She probably should have done it a little earlier. She has a website called myshingle.com. Myshingle.com is very attractive to a home improvement store or to a vaccination organization.
right.
All right? So she went to her lawyer and said, I have this website, what do we do about digital assets? Her lawyer said, we don't have to do anything, don't worry about it, it's taken care of.
Oh dear.
Wrong.
She was smart enough, she found out about us, contacted us, we walked her through the process. She's now protected. We make sure that subscription continues.
That's one of those things that if it expires, it expires. You can't get it back.
No.
And
you have to go back
that's
to
why,
GoDaddy and get lucky.
If no one took
Yeah.
it from you.
if nobody, and GoDaddy now has a mechanism to see demand
And raise the
and
price.
and raise the price and put
Yeah.
it into the auction block.
And that's assuming someone wasn't already on the tell me when it expires list.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got, which is why Karen has brought the program in, because what we'll do is offer you quite a bit of protection. Other things that are asset indicators. So we know that many banks have gone to paperless statements, and now we've heard stories where when somebody comes in to do their estate, they don't necessarily always remember all their bank accounts. You know, they may have,
It's
For
almost
sure.
impossible not to be forced into paperless.
exactly.
I mean, they're getting really uppity about it.
Well, because they don't want to spend the money on mailings, and they, you know, they
Right.
want cost. They want. So what we see is, like my father before he passed, he wanted to surprise my mom with, like, you know, here's a little bit of money. Never told her. Stuff was going to an email address nobody knew about. Right? He wanted to do the right thing. Just didn't think, okay, nobody knows about email addresses. There's another scary story. Another true one. Fidelity, a vice president of Fidelity. Okay? You figure they've got some knowledge around this area. She married a guy when he was in his 30s, before they got married, he would invest in startup companies. And he would have the statements being sent to an email address that even after they got married, she didn't even know existed. One of the companies hit it big, was bought by Oracle. Oracle didn't know what to do. They kept sending the information to this email address. The phone number was knocked out. By that point, she had turned off his cell phone. There was no way to contact anybody. They had no idea. hired Transamerica to go find an heir. Found her years later and had already eroded a third of the value of the investment. Simply because nobody knew about that email address. Especially with investments where there's no dividend, there's no reporting to the government, you can't necessarily go back and say, I have this, because there's no paper trail either with the government when you file your taxes. Intellectual property. There's a famous author, and I can never remember his name, whose last book is tied up on his computer in an encrypted file. How do you get it? You can't. And then, personally, Shutterfly, Dropbox, Pinterest, they all hold some of the things that are most dear to us, our legacies. One of my closest friends, Meredith, she's got a 20-year-old daughter. Box full of pictures. Has a 16-year-old daughter. No box. It's all on Shutterfly. And if she were to die, Jordan, the 16-year-old, would not have pictures of her childhood. There'd be no access. So when she grows up, what is she going to tell her children? Grandma locked them in on Dropbox and can't get in, or Shutterfly. So what we take for granted, we can't do with digital assets any longer. So there's a company that I built 5 years ago based on a personal experience called Directive Communication Systems. The company was founded because when I used to work in the gift card business, everybody go to Safeway and see that big rack with all different gift cards on it? Everybody shop on it? Thank you. I helped to create that back in 2000. And so I got to know different gift card people, and there was I created a friendship of mine with the Fandango gift card, if people know what Fandango is. Yeah. He died on April 1st, 2013, very suddenly. And 3 months later, I went onto LinkedIn, and there was his picture, and they wanted me to congratulate him on being a 20-year volunteer ski instructor up in Maine. And that's one of those anniversaries that you want to congratulate somebody on. And I thought about calling Jim, and then I was reminded that he was dead. And what went through my mind was picturing his 10-year-old daughter picking up the phone and going, "Daddy's dead." And how many people called the house, and Gail having to explain to her daughter that they can't do anything because his picture's on the net and there's an anniversary there and they have to be prepared for the calls. And it struck me. It really touched a big piece of me. And so I did some research and started talking to lawyers and said, how can this happen? And quickly I learned it wasn't just the pictures and the memories. It's about money. It's about legacies that they want to pass on to children, cousins, families. It was so much more than I ever imagined. And I said, having figured out how to get a gift card to be sold in another retailer's point of sale system, I figured I could tackle this one. And so I started the company. I hired some very, very good people, and we built a very easy to use platform that helps you with your plans in making sure your digital assets are visible and the contents are accessible. It becomes a provision in your estate documents. That's the most effective way we could do it. We don't take any passwords, and we never know the contents of your accounts. We only make those accounts visible and accessible. And we do this because it's too hard. It's too hard to try to figure this stuff out on Karen in your own time. It's way complicated, way more than I ever imagined. We do this, we capture not only the accounts, but digital assets, your hardware. So, because we know there's information there. My computer's not going to work if I'm working on this one. We capture down to the account-specific level, which meets the account owner or the website owner's needs. So we capture it on Google, we capture it on Facebook, we capture it pretty much on every account that's out there. We're always building our database. It keeps your information private. Only you decide what happens to your account and your information. Nobody else decides for you, Again, that complies with the laws and the terms of service.
You
And
have
we-
separate accounts for married couples.
Yes, because you sign the terms of service separately. So that's what those site owners are expecting. With the exception of banks, banking, joint banking, there are laws about that.
Well, but if the assets are in our trust, what then?
You're
When you-
still gonna just have, because most of those assets are not in your trust. They can't, I've got language that says they are, but that's not the terms of service agreement that
Well,
we
yeah, the
signed.
Gmail account, that kind of stuff, but like the Fidelity account, the
Oh, yeah,
Fargo
and
account.
Those are gonna settle the proper way.
yeah.
Okay.
For our service in this case, when it's a strict financial account, typical institution like an investment or a bank, that's gonna settle traditionally. We're gonna help to make sure it's visible, because if it's forgotten about, at least Karen or your trustees are gonna say, oh, they must have opened up an E-Trade account, Dad was down in Florida, and he was like decided to do day trading. But now we'll have that information, so it will be available.
Well, how are you gonna know it if I've forgotten it?
Because the
We're gonna-
computer's gonna pick it up on it for you.
We're gonna show you how we
Okay.
get to accounts.
As long as you get access to it somehow. As long as if you forget to tell me, you forget to tell her. If you're accessing it on the computer, this will know.
Well, what if it's one of those long forgotten
Well,
accounts like they
then,
talk about?
we can't help you what we don't
Yeah,
know.
they
We
might
can only
went-
go so
went out
far.
and found.
Yeah, I will tell you our service is not perfect.
No, I understand.
Right?
It's not
As in
ESP.
Right, yeah, we'll get there, we're gonna get to the telepathic soon.
Linda has a question.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just to clarify, when we sign up for DCS services, there's a separate account for each spouse?
yes,
Okay,
yes,
Even if they overlap,
even
even if they overlap.
yeah, because
And there's room,
preferably only one of you's gonna die at a time.
we hope.
and you're gonna dictate what you want to have happen. And you'll be able to tell us, this is a family plan if you want, or, so you'll be able to tell us, also give us some detail on some of the parameters. So, what we do, this is a little bit repetitive. Basically what happens is Karen will enroll you. Then we will have an email going out to you saying, please use your own, create your own password to log in. We will have educational webinars for you. We do one-on-ones, we do groups. We get you familiar with the systems, there are videos, and I'll go walk you through some of those. It's very easy to use. We've even had people in their 90s who are not technology savvy saying, wow, I don't even have to ask you any questions. And in fact, at some point, I can play the video for everybody if you want the 3-minute video that I showed
No,
last night.
that's okay. I think
Okay.
they got it.
But it's very easy to use. Then when the time comes, we partner with your estate, and because we have the relationships with the different site owners, we'll carry out the directives in partnership. So your fiduciary, your trustees will tell us when to send information, but they cannot change it. So if they want to leave Facebook up for a week so that we can put down where the memorial is or any types of services or donations, then we can put it into legacy status or memorialization status. But we will work with your trust and your staff. We don't do anything autonomously except contact the credit bureaus so people can't open up credit cards. And when you're in the system, you're going to notice there are 2 types of directives you want to create. One is an action-oriented directive, and one is an informational directive. The informational directive is the one related to the disclosure of the account contents. That's going to be who you want us to be identified as receiving or designated the data dump. So, yes?
Can it only be a single individual? Okay.
You can have multiples. Because you may have 20,000 pictures and not one person can go through them all. So you can name your estate or your trust, you can name your nephew, you can name anybody. We recommend you don't name like 25 people, you know, 2 or 3, depending on the asset, but you have that total control. Because from the site owner's perspective, they want to know, what do you want to do? And once you make that declaration, then they know. So the key here is that our organization can prove to the site owners that you've made the decision. We can show logs where you've made decisions. We know the options that are available per site owner. And we can demonstrate username tied to you, the individual, and to that directive. So with a very easy to use service, we're able to accomplish a lot. There's also the action-oriented directive. This is to close or delete the account, remove by name from a family share plan, put it in memorialization status, whatever you want to physically have done with that account. That will be done after the disclosure of information if that's what's necessary. Some accounts you may not need a disclosure of information. So if I shop at, the grocery market, I do Fresh Direct. Nobody really needs to know the disclosure, but I do want to close that account because I got my credit card on file.
And I want to keep sending something every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No auto delivery. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be dead. I won't be able to eat those tangerines. For $1. But you do have those action oriented, so you got to remember that you have two types of directives. When you're thinking about your accounts in our system, your trust usually takes care of the ones on the right. And the rewards, those are the ones that are known at the time. I mean on the left. The right, those are the ones we forget about. Talk about emails, obviously we've talked about that plenty today. Gaming, we talked a little bit about. Gambling, anybody does any betting online, let's say for Super Bowl or World Series, and they have balances, or if, like in New York, you have an OTB account, off-track betting. Those get forgotten about. Virtual wallet, e-commerce, and dating. We talked about eHarmony. Did we talk about that? Mm-hmm. So here's one that people take for granted. This is a great example because it's an ideal place for identity theft. But before I met my wife, I was on eHarmony. And a lot of the women wouldn't respond to me, and I thought it was me personally. I've learned that in reality, when people die, they don't get their profiles pulled off the dating sites. So I was meeting a lot of dead women.
I'm not even going there.
So,
which part was this?
So now I'm up to my wife. But the idea that we have our profiles out there, and really, if you think about it, eHarmony has a lot of information about me. I need to make sure they delete that account.
Do you mind?
If you take a look real quickly at what a potential profile looks at, if just a handful of accounts are compromised, and there's still a lot of work to be done, and you're not having a lot of back and forth, a couple of years ago it was about $35,000 in expenses just to handle digital assets. That can be done for a fraction of that. It was another reason why when I started the business, I didn't want money to be an obstacle because digital assets are owned by everybody. You even have children who have animation characters and they have their own profiles on their sites.
There's YouTubers who kids are 6 years old making $5 million, you know.
Exactly. Although they could afford my service.
Yeah.
But we wanted to actually keep it very reasonable so that it's available to everybody.
That concludes Mr. Poskanzer's presentation. So now I'm going to take a minute or two to show you what DCS will look like for our clients. I just created an account for myself, so I'm going to use that to show you around. Alright, so the first thing that will happen is DCS will send you an email with a link to get started, and there you'll create your password and come to this login screen. So I'm going to log in real quick. Okay. And the very first time you log in with DCS, they will kind of walk you through the process. They'll ask you about a couple of contacts, see if you want to set any defaults, and they will also show you their browser extension, which I will go into more detail in a second. But after all that happens, you'll come to this user view, your user profile. Over here on the left, you have all of your contact information, Karen's information, as well as your addresses down here. And then at the top here, you have your contacts. Fiduciaries are the people named in your estate plan. Don't change those. They have to match what your estate plan says, and we'll help keep that all up to date and together. In the gray here, your personal and professional contacts. You can keep those updated and add as many people as you'd like. Most people have about 7 to 10, but it depends on your personal preference. And these are people who will be involved in your plan after you're gone. They're gonna, you can disclose information to them, you can transfer things to them. These are the people who are involved. The next section down here is your accounts. You can see I've added a couple of accounts. It includes the directive you want of different symbols that mean different things. If you hover over them, there's more details. The account name, if there's a nickname, and the status. So you see this one needs a directive. So this is for my Google account. You can do the nickname, add a description. You can choose if you want this account to be private or show that there may be financial information or actual cash value assets. A good example of that is if you're a photographer and you have pictures saved in here that could be worth some money, you want to mark that financial account so that your fiduciaries know that there is some cash value in there. They require your account email, so what you use to sign on, and the account holder name. They don't want any passwords, just those two. And below you can choose your account directive. So this is what's going to happen. This is what DCS will do after you pass away. And each site is different as to what you can do. Some of them are very simple. Things like Google, you can get into a little more detail here. So this is going to be who gets this information. I will select my husband, Andrew. And Google allows you to select the data you want to share. So this is my husband. I want him to have everything. So we'll save that. But let's say that I want to add my dad, and I just want him to get pictures. So you can be totally custom with that. And the last action, so after Andrew and my dad get that information, I want them to close the account. And then also at the bottom here, they have the date added and the last date modified so that DCS can show that, yes, this is my choice, and this is the date that I made this choice. So we'll save, and we can also delete the account. So say, I don't have this account anymore, so we don't have to worry about it. It's already gone. We can just delete it. We don't have to worry about it. Now, if you want to add all of your accounts one by one, just like that, you certainly can. You can add account here, or another method is called a portfolio link. And this just means you can upload a document to DCS. I know a lot of people, you might already have a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet that has a list of all of your accounts and passwords. If you delete the passwords out of that, you can give the rest to DCS and they will upload them yourself. You still have to choose your own directives, but at least all of the accounts are going to be there waiting for you. They do also have a sample file, so I'll show you what they're going to be asking for. So they don't want any passwords, but just the account name, so say Facebook, your username, if there's an account number, facebook.com. So you can fill that out, save it, and upload it to them, and in a day or two, they'll have everything ready for you. So that's one easy way to really get started with this. Another really cool way is with their browser extension. And if you didn't do this in the very first time you logged in, you can still do this later. Up in the corner, you can download the browser extension. Now, I'm using Google Chrome, so Firefox and Internet Explorer might look a little bit different, but the idea is the same. So this is the Chrome Web Store. It's totally free. It's included in your plan. So we're going to add the extension. And what this is going to do is when you go to a new website that's not already in your DCS portfolio, it will recognize that and ask you if you want to add it. So up here in the corner with all the rest of your extensions, we're going to sign in for the first time. Oops. Okay, so submit, and it asks you which browser this is. This happens to be my Office browser. Oh, since I've done this before, this isn't my first time running through this. I'm going to deauthorize my old browser, but this shouldn't show up for you. You can say, you know, this is in my office, this is in the living room, this is my laptop, however you want to identify it. And you should be good to go. So I'll show you an example. So I have an Ancestry.com account that I want to make sure that I've spent hours and hours on this account doing family tree research, so I want to make sure that this moves on and all this information isn't just lost. So we'll go to the site and log in here. Oh, I may not know my password, but up here at the top, this is the part I wanted to show. It says, do you want to add Ancestry.com to your DCS portfolio? So you can add the account, say not now. If you say not now, it'll ask you again the next time you log in, or never, and they'll never ask about it again. But I want to add this account, and there you go. It's been added to my portfolio. So if we go back here, and I'll refresh the screen so it has time to think, and it should be there waiting for me to choose my own directive. See, here we go. It's got a question or exclamation mark saying that it needs a directive. So it already has my username. We'll just give this Ancestry. That's my username, and I will disclose this to my husband. And then at the end, it'll close the account. Save. And there you go. So you can do this as you go about your daily life. Just add the accounts that you're using, and then, you know, every month or so, or every 6 months, or whenever you want to do it, sign back into DCS and go through and make sure you select all of your directives. So that's how to add all your accounts here, and it keeps them nice and organized for you. And this section down here about devices is pretty neat. You can inventory all of your devices if you have different phones, laptops, tablets, computers. I think you can even do TVs, all of those kinds of assets. So I'll show you an example for my phone. This is my personal cell phone. So, you know, nickname, a type, the brand, model, the carrier. I don't know my serial number, but you can put that in there. And the best part about this is you can put in your passcode. So my phone is locked with a 4-digit passcode. So I can put that in there and then grant access to my husband Andrew, or whoever, or do not provide to anyone. Or if you have a pattern, you can describe it in this section here. But then after you die, that information will be passed on to the right people. I heard a story from a client of ours when we started this whole process with DCS. His wife passed away, and her phone was also locked, a simple 4-digit code, but he didn't have that information, and it was a huge fight. I don't know if it was Samsung or Apple, but it was a huge fight, a huge process to go through and get access to her phone. And, you know, there's all kinds of information on phones these days, pictures, all that kind of stuff. So if you have this set up, you can avoid all of that headache. And the whole point of all of this is to make everything easier for those we leave behind, make everything move nice and smoothly. So that is your user profile. And also back up here at the top, there is the Resource Center. So DCS has great customer service. You can always come to the Resource Center. They have different videos and features and things like that that you can look at. DCS is encrypted, so there's more information about their security here in the Resource Center. They are encrypted because they don't keep passwords, they don't keep any account content. They really just have your account names and what you want to do after you die. So it's not even really attractive to hackers. There's really nothing for them to gain. So you can trust they are encrypted. It's not that attractive to hackers. So it's a very safe program. If you do have any trouble with them, if you have any questions, if the Resource Center isn't enough, they do have wonderful customer service. I called them today and right to a person. It was very good. They also do have a chat feature down here where you can chat with them, you can call them, and of course, if they're not cutting it, you can always call us. We're here for you. We're here for our clients. So yes, this was my tour of DCS, and we hope you find it as a useful tool and a useful enhancement to your estate plan. Thank you so much for watching.